Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be trying to create a brand new 3D character in Blender and importing it into Godot, and we're going to animate it. I've had a couple of tries at this and some have been successful, others not so much, so let's see what we can do. So the first thing I'm going to do is switch to edit mode. I'm going to merge at cursor, going to add a modifier, so we're going to make a mirror modifier. It's going to enable us to have a mirror effect. Going to add a skin modifier, and we're going to have a subdivision surface. Before we do anything, we're going to add a cube to the scene because I don't want this character to be higher than 2 meters tall, so it's not going to be above 2 squares. I've added this square to the scene so I could use this as a reference point. Let's start extruding out so that we've got something to work with. So if we start extruding outwards, extrude out again, so that these are going to be the legs, and I'm pressing Z so that it binds it on the Z axis so we get the straight lines. Selecting the point again, extruding out, press Z again, so this is going to be the belly. Extrude again, X. These are going to be our arms. I'm trying to make these a little bit longer because from my previous experiences I'm usually adding a collider in Godot, so it just means that when I add the collider it's easier to hit my character and get collisions working. And then we're going to extrude out again so that we got the head. I don't want to go above the reference point, so we'll start by that. If I just add the legs, sorry, the feet, I'm going to extrude out again on the y-axis. They don't have to be too accurate from what I've saw, but again it's all trial and error. Okay, so we've got a basic shape of a body. There's probably an easier way of doing this, but from the tutorials that I've been watching, working with the skin modifiers worked quite well for me. Now that I've got the basic shape working, or at least a skeleton, it's probably time to start adding some loop cuts for where the joints are going to be. So if I add one for the knee, if I add one for somewhere on the foot so the foot can bend, we can add one for the stomach, and we can add one for both the shoulder and the elbow. Okay, and I think that's where we'll start filling this out now. So if we start changing the shape of this now, we should start having it resemble more of a body. So I'm going to do Shift and A, Control and A, and start resizing this out, and it's already starting to fill out a little bit. If we start filling out these points here, Shift A, it's already filling out. Don't worry about where that is now, because we're going to move it along anyway. So I'm going to do G and do it on the x-axis. So I'm going to keep them close together like that. It's a little bit chubby, that's fine. We're going to fill out the chest a little bit. Shift A, filling out the chest. shoulders are looking, yeah, okay. Doesn't need to be completely perfect because this is really to go in the indie game. Where the elbow bends, I'm trying to fill it out just a little bit and make it a little bit narrower in the forearm. Okay, that looks good to me, and we'll come back and see whether we can make it look half decent. So I added a loop cut here just so that I could make the neck a little bit slimmer. I thought it's going to help us with the head. I'm going to pick the top part now and expand them just a little bit just to get it a little bit more circular, and the neck I want it a little bit narrower so that it resembles more of a head. So we've got the basic shape of a body. I'm gonna now do the thumb and maybe 2 or 3 fingers, and we'll start seeing whether we can style it. So I've added the fingers to the arm, and I think we're going to add some loop cuts to these just so they can bend. I don't think we're going to try and bend them too much, but we can try in the future. Okay, so we've got the 3 natural parts on where the fingers bend. And what we've got is we should have a character that, or a shape of a character at least, that will fit on our scene. So I don't think we're going to need to use the mirror modifier, so I'm going to go to the modifiers and we're going to apply the mirror modifier because we don't need that anymore. Okay, so we left with just the skin and the subdivision. Okay, so the next point, we need to make the root of the armature. So if I do this and select the center point of the body, make root, this is going to allow me to animate all the parts when we create the armature. So creating the armature. Okay, so all looks good there, and I think we can probably get rid of the skin now. We can apply that, and we should be able to apply the other parts. Right, okay, so that's done. This is going to allow me now to start painting the object. I just need to UV unwrap it. So if I select all of that now and press U, smart UV unwrap, keep the defaults, and we've got all of the parts here which we're going to be able to colour. Before doing anything, what I've found is I need to make sure that all the parts move individually, because it's going to save lots of time with undoing everything that we've done. So we're in object mode, and I'm going to select the armature and see these are where all the joints are. I'm going to press tab, flick to edit mode, and I just want to see whether each one moves in a pose. So if we flick to pose mode, you can see that we're in pose mode. Select the bone that we want to rotate, and in here, okay, so that leg moves, that leg moves, we do rotate, that's fine. Yep, that's fine. I don't quite like how everything is changing shape. I'm not sure how to fix that, but in principle it works. Okay, so we've got a body that does move. We should be able to... Yep, okay, so we've got everything that moves mostly as expected. I think as I get a bit more experience, I'm going to be able to figure out what that problem is. But for now, I'm just going to proceed. Next thing I want to do is start creating a texture. So in order to create a texture, I need to first create a texture image. So Shift A, texture image, and we're gonna put the color into the base color, and this changes to black. I'm not sure why, but I can only kind of see from the tutorial I've been watching why that actually happens. I'm not sure, but as I'm learning, we'll find out. So now we've got the shading set up for a texture image. I'm going to create a new image, and we're going to call it, I don't know, baddie 2. I'm going to keep the defaults, and when I go to texture paint now, we can see that we've got all the things that we can shade. So I think as a example, I'm just going to put everything to white and go from there. There's probably a much easier way to do this, but again, it's all down to experience. So I've got everything white, and as we can see in the texture paint, I'm going to choose a base color for the face and the hands. So I think I'm just going to choose like a very pale pink, and I'm just going to paint as much as I can see, and I'm going to do the hands. Okay, and then I want to have like grey bottoms, so you know, being in the prison, it's going to be, you know, pretty dull colours. So if we start with dark bottoms, so it looks to be quite easy to get to draw onto the model. I don't know whether it's easier to do the shading over on this. Yeah, lesson learned. Okay, so I think from the topwards we're going to go for maybe another grey. And keep it quite dull. It's, you know, you're in prison. You shouldn't be relaxing, right? It's not a fashion show. So I think I got something massively wrong here by colouring all this white, which is like the non-renderable UV mesh, which kind of makes it quite hard for me to figure out where I've drawn on and where I haven't. Yeah, lesson learned. That'll be one for the future. I think I won't keep it too complex. We're going to leave it kind of like that. I'm just going to put a face and hair onto it. Since this is like a low poly model, I'm just going to freestyle it, so we're not going to worry too much about how it looks. Let's just add two eyes, maybe some then we're going to add the pupil. Okay, so we're going to add the pupils. There's the eyes, and we're going to give him probably some lips. So we're not going to try and animate the face or anything like that. That's probably a bit too complex for me at the moment. But if we just add some facial features, we're going to add a mouth, I'm going to add some lips onto him, so 20. And we're going to add the teeth. Oh, wrong colour. Okay, so the last thing to do is to add the hair, and I'm going to make the hair probably brown. It's not too important in how it looks at the moment, because this is really more for my learning than anything. Right, so I don't know what I've done there, and I don't really know how to correct that unless I undo everything. There we are. So if we undo everything, I could just leave a bit of a bald spot at the back, I guess. As I start getting a bit more creative, I will start playing around with how these can look. Oh, so yeah, so bled through. I'm not entirely sure why that bled through there. I'm not sure. I'm just going to leave that. So what I did notice is we've got a few kind of blemishes in the trousers. So I just thought maybe I should just play on it and just make it look like he's wet himself. Darker. There we are. Okay, so it does look like he's wet himself, I guess, and we are nearly complete. I think I'm just going to add like a black ribbon around the trousers, just so that we've got a distinguished belt line, and then I think we're good with the colouring. It will do for the kind of demo anyway. Okay, so there's our first texture image, and what we're going to do is try to animate it, and after that we're going to bring it into Godot and add it onto a scene. So we're looking a bit shit at the minute, but that's fine. We got no chin. That's fine. It's only meant to be a quick model so we can use in the game. Let's try and animate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the action filter and create my first action. We're going to name it walk, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the dope sheet and make sure that I am in pose mode. So I'm in pose mode now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and set the default pose to with the arms by the side. So we're going to rotate it, rotate, rotate. Okay, so we've got the arms ready to move, and what I want to do is set this up to be 24 frames. So 24 frames, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the pose whereby the front foot is a little bit forward, and then we're going to insert a keyframe. So if I start with the left foot, it's a little bit wonky. There we are. So rotating it upwards, and then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the foot just a little bit, leg. There we are, and I think I want to see whether we can have the foot almost touch, and then I'm going to do the same for the opposite leg, but put a little bit of a bend in there. Yep, and then what I want to do is I want to do the opposite arm. I'm going to rotate that upwards. And then that one we're going to rotate backwards just a little bit. Right, okay, so I'm going to press A and insert the very first keyframe. Okay, so we've got the first keyframe, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 12. I'm not sure why it needs to be 12. I think it's just for smoothing them out. I'm going to select the previous keyframe that we've inserted and just paste it as flipped. And with a little bit of luck, that should work. But I think I've forgotten something, and what I think it is that when I'm trying to copy and paste as flipped, so to do most of the animating for us, it relies on a specific type of naming in the layout, which is for the bones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the naming of these bones. So the naming is going to follow the left and right. So if we go to bone and do upper leg dot left, upper leg dot right, lower leg dot left, lower leg dot right. And I'm going to do that for the rest of the bones, and then we're going to flip back over to the animation. Okay, so I've named everything now to as best as I really want it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my first keyframe again. So I've selected the whole armature by pressing A. I pressed I to insert the first pose. If we go to frame 12 and select our previous pose, select copy, right click, paste flipped, and because we've named all our parts left and right, we should have something that resembles this. Now it is moving, but it's not entirely smooth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to frame 24 and copy the same pose to frame 24, paste, and we should end up with quite a smooth walking. It doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's distorting a fair bit, but yeah, that would do for our first animation. So this is what it looks like currently with our texture and UV unwrap. And all I want to do is to see whether we can add one attack so that we can animate that in Godot. So let's create a new animation, which is going to be a punch. So I don't entirely know how to do the actions. We're going to freestyle it a little bit. It might be more than a slap rather than a punch. So I've reset the armature back to a bit of a standing position, and what I'm going to do is I just want to insert the default frame, which is for okay, so we've got the default frame, and I don't entirely know how many frames it should be. I guess it should be a little bit more than 24 frames, but yeah, let's try. So we're going to go with this. So we're going to say he's going to be right-handed, and that arm's going to swing backwards, I guess. If we switch to a different view, there we are. Right, okay, so frame 7. Okay, so we're going to rotate it back. Let's insert a new frame. We're going to lift it up. Frame 11. We're gonna guess we're gonna try and rotate it up, I guess. And will that rotate? We want that rotating. No. Okay, so let's try frame 16 now, and we're going to pull it back just a little bit. That's going to come back a little bit more. And what does that look like? Yeah, it looks quite mechanical, but not much I can do. I need to see how these animations are put together. or at least how the poses are done. For the next frame, I think we're gonna bring it forward. And we're gonna bring this out. Okay, so let's just see how that looks. I think we could probably improve that. Okay, so we've got a bit of a slapping motion. I'm a bit concerned that it's not fully extended, so we probably need to try and fix that. The reason being is, if we don't fully extend that out, is the collision with the other object, it's going to have to be very, very close to, very, very close. So putting it in texture mode here, it doesn't look all that great, to be honest. It's a start, but probably I think we might want to be adding more frames onto that. 24 is probably not enough frames to fit that in, because it's where it seems to be a bit more mechanical. But for this kind of like game, I think I'm just going to leave it as that. I just want to get to kind of the game mechanics as quickly as possible. So for now, let's leave it as that, and we're going to import this into Godot. With that model exported, I'm going to add this into Godot, and we're going to try and drag it into a scene and animate it with a script. So I've created a folder called Baddie2, and I'm going to drop in the model that we've just exported. And we get the texture that we've got assigned to the model, and if I double click it, we can see that that's what we've got. Doesn't look great, it's but it would do. We've got the punch animation or slap, and then we've got the walk animation, which we're going to try and add on to animate it in a scene. So with the new character added to the scene, we've got it there walking around animating. It's got a red line which is the pathfinding. That's only enabled in debug. For some reason it's not doing the animation to do the slap, but that's one for another thing. The other character I did a little bit earlier, I think the collision object is the origin set a little bit too high. It's just above the ground, but yeah, it's looking good. And that's it from this week's vlog. We've got 2 characters added to the scene that play animations. They're both textured. They walk around. One of them does attack you, albeit he's a little bit high up in the screen. I think the origin's a little bit off in relation to the floor. And we die. So the next part of this is wiring up part of the game. So thanks for watching.